What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel and thank y'all for tuning in. As always, you know I appreciate you guys. I feel like I've done like 6 or 9 of these this weekend, but this is going to be the last one. We had day 2 of the Paris Supercross, and night 1 was absolutely insane. We saw all kinds of stuff that's not typically in the contract, but night 2, it was a little bit more back towards normalcy for at least Jett Lawrence, but even after going quad god, it still wasn't enough to take down Malcolm Stewart for the second consecutive night. We had what appeared to be a wounded Hunta, a cautious Cooper Webb, a loose Tom Vial, and we also had some great racing in the SX2 class as we had a King and a Prince of Paris crowned. But before we get into all that, I got to give a huge thank you and a shout out to my channel sponsors that help keep us going. ASV Inventions, home of the unbreakable lever, Serious Studio, who can take care of all your merch needs, and then the designlabco.com. They got some great designs in their lab at their co, and if you guys buy from them, a small slice of the sale goes to me to help support the channel and keep us going. So if you support them, you are literally supporting me. And shout out to Simplify, a brand new sponsor of the channel. They're an automatic booking and payment system built for solo entrepreneurs. Whether you're a moto coach, trainer, or really any kind of business where you have clients booking you, Simplify will make your business way more efficient, way more profitable, and it'll make your life way the hell easier. Go to simplify.earth to sign up and use the code MAT9509 to save. I have all the rest of my links and discount codes in my video description, and I hope you guys enjoy today's video. Alright, to start off real briefly, before we get into the results, we'll just talk about a couple of things real quick that I kind of touched on in the night 1 video, but the format, I love the 2-day format and the fact that all 6 main events from both nights all count towards the Prince and King of Paris. You know, we've seen several guys over the years that have 5 good main events, but all 6 count and they have 1 bad one, and just that lack of consistency in that last main kind of takes him out of the running. We saw it again this year in the 250 class, although the 450 class was kind of a foregone conclusion, but yeah, 2 days of racing, 6 main events, super action packed, and pretty much everything counts. I love the Super Pool as well. I wish the Super Pool maybe counted towards the overall or something like that, but I believe it's just for gate pick. But either way, still really fun watching all the top guys just go out and blitz a lap all by themselves. And then as for the track, obviously it was the same as night 1, but I'm a big fan of this Paris Supercross track, especially in comparison to the other off-season Supercrosses. I feel like it's pretty much always one of, if not the best off-season racetracks. But for night 2, it was a little bit slicker than night 1. Definitely had some spots that were slicker than Trump's comb over, but the whoops were nice and big again. They continue to play a factor at this race. I've been told in the comments they were not steamrolled. I guess it was some vibrating compactor. I don't know. I think maybe the guy that was up in arms with it, maybe he had lost his vibrator. Just kidding. The dude was just busting my balls. We're all cool here. I welcome it. But we had the whoops. We had a big-ass quad that Jett Lawrence and Malcolm Stewart busted out. And I really liked how there were different options in the rhythm sections and different options in the corners. You know, even the 90s, you could go inside, and then that would set you up for a different rhythm option than if you went outside and railed the berm around the outside with the Trailer Park Girls. But even with only 2 rhythms on the track, both of them offered up multiple options. I thought it was really cool in one of the rhythms where Malcolm was going inside, doubling in, and then having that quad in the middle so he could stay inside. And really, the options both looked very similar. So it was just cool to see different options at especially such a small track. You know, there were only 2 rhythm sections, and both of them provided multiple options. Especially the quad was cool. It really didn't look like it was all that air quote hard per se, but you know, that's me watching from the couch and all. But like they were saying during the broadcast, it's not really like they were having to stretch it out and pull up or anything crazy. It was just committing to it, grabbing a handful of throttle and a yacht. But always a good track. 2025 was no different. Now we'll go ahead and get into the results, starting with the 450 class. King of Paris, and he technically wins the day 2 overall as well with Malcolm Stewart. A 2-2-1 on the day for day 2. He got second behind Jett in those first 2, but even though he wasn't able to take Jett down, he started behind him, and I feel like he actually had a little bit of speed on Jett Lawrence. But even the third main, kind of a lackluster start, and the dude just blew through the field, past both of the Lawrence brothers, caught Cooper Webb, and made it look pretty easy. Mookie was kind of a man amongst boys at this Paris Supercross 2025 edition. The dude just crushed it. I mean, he was smashing the whoops. There really didn't appear to be much of a weakness in his game. I think he even got the Super Pole win on night 2, and just a dominating King of Paris. So congrats to Malcolm Stewart. It's hard to put a lot of stock into these off-season races because it's not an AMA spec, not the AMA build, not the whole field like the AMA guys. But if there's one race that I feel like you can maybe draw some meaning from, I feel like Paris could be one of them. And yeah, Malcolm Stewart is looking really good coming into 2026. He got that first win in 2025. Who knows if he keeps this up? more than likely he's going to be adding to that total. But then second in the overall King of Paris goes to Cooper Webb, last year's defending champ, and a little bit of an off weekend for Cooper Webb. I'm sure he's not too thrilled about it, but yesterday, last night, when you had bodies hitting the floor and Jett and Hunta both crashing out of that last main, I feel like Coop probably just went into being smart and managing a solid weekend mode. I doubt he gets any bonus from being King of Paris. These guys are just getting fat stacks to show up. So Coop's a smart guy. He's a racer. He knows what's on the line and when it's on the line. But all that being said, none of that should be taking anything away from Malcolm Stewart. Malcolm clearly had Coop covered. And if you guys have already forgot, Coop is kind of the reigning AMA Supercross champion as well. So for Mookie to do that to Coop and the Lawrence brothers, super impressive. But back on the Cooper Webb front, I feel like he didn't come into this with a ton of time under his belt, maybe a couple of weeks. They're still reasonably early in the offseason boot camp nationals, but nothing special out of Coop, but still brought home a second and no issues, no incidents, no nothing. Then a third overall for the weekend for Jett Lawrence after a disastrous Saturday. Crashed in the Super Pole, crashed in the first moto, crashed out of the third main. But day two, he was much better. He won the first two mains, just got out front, kind of managed it. He had some pressure from Malcolm Stewart, but was able to fend it off. And he was the first one to bust out the quad. Apparently all the guys had a pact that they weren't going to jump it. And then, of course, Jett just pulls it out like nothing. And Mookie followed suit as well. And I think the craziest part about all that is the Lawrence brothers on their Honda HRC bikes. I say HRC, but I don't think there was much HRC about them. You know, they had their suspension and maybe some electronics, but word on the street was that they were on stock engines, and even the stock Honda, it was still enough to pull out the quad. It was still enough to get some hole shots, and yeah, definitely we saw some chinks in the armor of Jett Lawrence this weekend, but it's still middle of November, still got almost 2 months before A1, and I did expect a lot more, especially with him being on the same model bike. Not any big changes to the Honda in 2026, but if you remember back to the beginning of 2025 AMA Supercross, Jett and Hunter both had quite a few problems with the setup. The bikes were off, and this looked a little bit reminiscent of that. But luckily for Jett and Hunter, if they're going to have issues, I'm sure they would way rather have them now than at A1 or during the AMA Supercross season. So they got some time to figure it out. And then right behind Jett, fourth overall for his brother Hunta. And I was just glad to see Hunta back for today. He took a pretty good crash in the whoops last night. I was hoping he wasn't going to be out for the weekend, but can't keep a good kangaroo down. He was back in it for the day, and he appeared to maybe be wounded or just riding cautious after he went ass over tea kettle yesterday. You never want to leave a foreign country all in a cast or head to the hospital or anything like that. So a fourth overall on the weekend for Hunta. Didn't really show any flashes or anything crazy, and the weekend kind of got away from him before it really started, as he had that first turn crash right away in main one last night. But still, to get out of this whole race vacation national relatively unscathed, he should be able to go back and get into his training and testing, and to come away with a fourth, it could be a lot better, but it could be worse. Then a fifth for Cedric Subaraz, and we almost had a surprise podium out of this guy. I believe Jett and Hunta were tied on 30 points, and then Subaraz had 31, so just barely missed out on it, but an awesome ride from the Frenchman. He's always good at this race. He's always good at Supercross, whichever ones he decides to show up to. And yeah, he almost pulled out a nasty underdog podium over a stacked field, but he was just a tick off those top guys. He consistently finished right behind them, and then when they had issues, he picked up the pieces and got those spots that they gave up. But a fifth for Subs, and then a sixth for Tom Vial, and that was a little bit of a sketchy debut if you ask me. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day because, it was a Honda 450 debut on a Supercross track, and he's contracted to be doing MXGP next year, so a little bit maybe of an irrelevant debut as far as like how it went, but yeah, we had some squirrely moments. He sniped Jett on night one. He almost sniped Hunter or Jett. I don't even remember in one of the motos tonight. Yeah, we had some sketch city moments out of Tom, but he buffed out, ended up a sixth overall, and I'm sure now it's time to go head to some snowy, absolutely horrible track in France somewhere to go get ready for MXGP. Sounds like fun. And then we had a couple of privateer American journeymen in the 7 and 8 spot in Mitchell Harrison and Marshall Welton. Good for Mitchell Harrison to continue the world tour along with Marshall Welton. These guys were both in Germany last weekend. Harrison was racing in Australia. Welton's been doing every money race under the sun and typically winning them. So really cool for those guys to just add stacks to the wallet in the offseason. But like I said yesterday, there's nothing off about the offseason for those guys, but tired money don't make money. They got no choice. But then rounding out the top 10 in this one, 9th for French SX Tour rider Adrien Escoffier, and a 10th for Andrew Valentin. And then the rest of the field, 11th for Adrian Malival, then Paul Haberland, Lucas Imbert, who has no idea what the blue flag means, Roman Pape, and then rounding out the field was Lorenzo Camporese. But that was the 450 class, pretty much always the main draw at this race, but in past years, there's usually at least a couple big names in the 250 class, but this year, not quite as much star power at the top, but still some great racing. But the crowd had something to be excited about because a Frenchman brought home the Prince of Paris honors in Anthony Bourdon. Definitely cool to see him get this win after a massive injury in the States last year. The dude banged himself up pretty good, and I feel like it was pretty close to being a career-altering or ending injury, so really cool of him to bounce back and get this win. He might not have been the fastest guy. I think those honors belong to Luke Clout, who got 2nd overall. But like I said, the 6 main event format, one bad one will get you because there are no drop scores, and Luke Clout had, I think, a 14th or maybe a 15th in one of the mains, so you got 4 main event wins, but that bad main event was all it took to give the win to Anthony Bourdon. Then a 3rd to Calvin Fonvier. I believe he's leading the points in the French SX Tour, so just picking up where he left off. He's got a couple of guys that I doubt he typically races that beat him, so solid ride for Fonvier. And then I don't know near as much about the rest of these guys. A 4th for Jules Pietra, 5th for Saad Suleimani from Morocco, the Moroccan shredder. How about that? Then a 6th for Jake Cannon, 7th for Bonifacio. I believe that's Steve Boniface's inbred cousin. Then an 8th for Manzado, 9th for LeBeau, and then a 10th for Koch. We had a couple of guys that were out of action for night 2. Kalana Humphrey on the Stark Varg. I just read his post on Instagram. He apparently had, quote, a crash out of his control, and that gave him a concussion, so he was unable to compete in night 2, which really sucks because he was having an awesome night on night 1. Really impressive rides, but yeah, you knock yourself in the dome. You got to take at least a night off, I guess. Then last but not least, Matisse Borromée. I saw an insane video on Instagram of him crashing into like another lane or something like that off the side of the finish line, but I guess he buffed out, but then in the results he did not buff out because he got dead last. It doesn't even look like he raced, and that's a bummer because Borromée is a really good rider. The racing's always better when the really good riders are in it, and yeah, not always the case. It's actually quite typically, usually not the case because, yeah, the sport is gnarly. But that's all I got for you guys from the Paris Supercross. As always, thanks again for watching, and please, by all means, let me know what you thought of the video. If you liked it, if you hated it, if you agreed with what I said, if you disagreed with what I said, if I'm just a cooked unit, or anything in between. We're here for all of it. Even if you want to hate, throw it our way. It's going to be okay. But yeah, like I said, appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you next time.